Hi everyone! Welcome to the St. Charles Public Library's virtual Crafternoon program. My name is Jane and I'm so glad you could join me today. We are doing our programs a little bit differently, so we hope that you enjoy this new format. Today, we're going to make paper citrus fruit hangers. Some supplies you'll need to make this project will be some construction paper, and you'll need two different colors. One, which you would like your fruit to be. On this example, I made an orange, and then some for the leaves. You'll also need some string or yarn that you will use to hang your project, some glue. I'm using Elmer's liquid glue, but you can use glue dots, they dry a lot faster. You could also try to use a glue stick. You will need to use a bit more glue to make it work. And if you don't have glue in your house, double stick tape would also work. You could also use a stapler. We will also need a stapler to create the center of our fruit. You will need some scissors. We will be doing a little bit of cutting. Alright, so the reason we're using construction paper is because it's a little bit sturdier than regular computer paper, but you could use computer paper if that's what you have. There's also multiple different sizes of construction paper. I'm using the larger size, but 9 by 12 as well as 8.5 by 11 would also work for this project. So the size of paper will determine how big your fruit is going to be. So this is a little larger. If you want to make a smaller fruit, you could use a smaller piece of paper. And then the green paper can be realistically any size you'd like, because we're going to cut a leaf out of here. And as you can see in my demo, the leaf is a little bit smaller than the fruit. All right, so the first step of this project, we are going to take our scissors and we're going to, taking our construction paper that we're using for the fruit, cut down the center. Now, try to find the center of the paper and make a straight line. It's okay if your line isn't perfect. Mine never is, because what we're going to then do in the next step, we're going to fold our paper, and it won't be very noticeable if it's off a little bit, so don't worry about that. All right, so you should have two pieces of paper now. What we're going to do then is we're going to fold them like an accordion. So taking your piece of paper, going to fold out, and then crease and flatten it. So then you should have a little fold. And basically then, you're going to then flip, holding your fold, and fold again. Try to keep your folds somewhat even. It'll be easier when it comes time to glue them together or if you're stapling them together. And then continue to fold your paper and flip as needed. All right, so you should have an accordion piece like this. And then you will do this exact same thing to your other piece of paper. So now you should have two accordion pieces of paper. And the next step we're going to do is I want you to take the accordion and push it together and pinch the center so it looks kind of like a bow. And you'll do that for both pieces of paper. And then taking two edges, hold them together. Try to line them up the best you can, and then try to find the center of them. Then you should have one big bow. Take your stapler, and where you've pinched them together, find your center, and staple. Pushing pretty hard to make sure your staple goes all the way through, since this is a pretty big piece for them to fit. And then you will have what looks like a bow. The next step, we will need your glue. So now you will see we have two open spots, as well as these are not connected either. And what I want you to do then is taking your accordion, see if you can kind of open it up. you can kind of see the fruit starting to come together. You'll notice if your edges aren't perfect, they don't line up wonderfully. So you can see here I didn't do the best job of cutting mine perfect, but you can kind of straighten yours. And since the accordion hides a lot of imperfection, it's very forgiving. So don't worry if your edges don't line up perfectly. And what we're going to do then is you're going to take your glue, being somewhat generous, going to take one side, open up your accordion, take your glue, and put some all along the edge. So all along this edge right here. And then you're going to take your other side and push them together and pinch. Try to help your glue stick your sides together. Now, if you're using Elmer's glue like I am, you are going to have to wait for this to dry a little bit. If you're finding your accordion is like popping apart, you can use paper clips to hold it together, or if you have those little clamp clips, you can use those too. If you're using glue dots, it will dry a lot faster. But if you're finding that Elmer's glue just really isn't holding your paper craft together for very long, you can also take your stapler and finding a spot you can stick it in, you can then staple your edge together. So then we wait. Okay, so once we've waited for our glue to dry, you will continue to do that across each section, leaving one open. So as you can see here, I've done all the others. And what we need to do then for this step is this is when we're going to make our leaf. So take your leaf paper, and I recommend when you make the leaf, you fold your paper in half, because we're going to need 2 leaves, but we want them to be symmetrical, meaning we want them to be basically the same leaf. So if you aren't comfortable freehanding, you can draw a leaf, and you want to make it maybe pretty big. We want it to stand out and fairly wide. So then, once you've drawn your leaf, you will cut it out. And since we folded our paper, we will have 2 symmetrical leaves. All right, so taking your fruit and one of your leaves, you'll want to stick it on one of the creases we've made. And as you can see, my leaf is pretty big. If you don't like the size of your leaf, you can trim it. And what you can do then is taking your glue again, or your stapler, or whichever method you are using to stick your fruit together, you will then glue along the edge you'd like to stick your leaf. Just like we did when we're sticking the fruit together. So all along that crease, and you'll take your leaf, try to center it, and glue it on. Now, if you're using Elmer's glue, you will have to wait for your glue to dry or your leaf will peel away. But like I said, if you're finding the Elmer's glue or any method you're using to stick just really isn't holding, or if you don't have glue, you can always go inside and stick a little staple to hold our leaf into place. All right, so then once our leaf is dry or in place and we're sure it's not going anywhere, you will need your string or yarn. Now, if you're using yarn, like I am here, because I just always happen to have some in my house, gluing will be a really easy method to get it to stay in our fruit so that we can use it as a hanger. If you would like to use something invisible like fishing line or some other smaller string, it might be better to skip this step and use a hole punch at the end if you have one of those, or to poke a hole in the top of your leaf using a pencil and then tie your string through there. The reason is we're going to be using glue in this step, and the yarn will stick to the glue a lot better and stronger than something like fishing line or a smaller string would. So if you're using yarn, I use a pretty generous large piece. It can be 1 or 2, whichever you have in your house. And I kind of fold it so that I have 2 ends, and then at the bottom is this loop. And taking that looped bottom piece, you're gonna lay it in your leaf. Taking your other leaf, you are going to glue it onto this side. So taking this leaf on the empty side, going to glue it and wait for that to dry. And like I said, if you're finding the glue just isn't holding, you can also use a staple again. And then you should have your 2 leaves here. So taking that looped yarn, this is where you're going to glue it into your leaf. Now, it might be easier to try to lay your thing like this. Using your glue. Now you don't want to use too much so that it doesn't glob out the edges of the leaf, but you do want enough that your yarn will stick. So I used a pretty generous amount. I didn't go all the way up the leaf quite yet. And then you might want to use just a little bit near the top. Like that. And then taking your other leaf side, you're going to press it into the other side. And this will start to complete your fruit. Now, if you used glue like I did, you'll need to hold it and clamp it in place so that it stays and it dries. If you let go too soon, you'll notice it starts to open. So this would be a good time to use paper clips or something to hold your leaf together. Or you can just hold it while you wait. And then you wait for your project to dry. Now that our fruit has had some time to dry, to assure that our leaves don't split apart, you want to take your stapler and near the top of the leaf, make a staple. This way, when your fruit is hanging, and on the next step where we fold the leaf a little bit, it won't split apart. So, as you can see here now, the fruit is pretty much done. One of the other steps I like to add is if you want to be able to see your leaf a bit better when your fruit is hanging, you can take your leaf and fold it out just a little bit. Not too much because you don't want to pull apart your glue. Now you can see the leaf a little bit better now when it's hanging. And now we have a lemon and an orange. Thanks so much for joining me. And if you'd like to see more craft videos and more library videos, please subscribe to the St. Charles Public Library's YouTube channel. And we hope to see you soon.